I'm going to be talking about our leaders born or made was the previous question there, and I'll maybe short circuit it a little bit and say that every one of us were born, and leadership is absolutely, I have seen through my team, is something that could absolutely be nourished, created, developed in very big ways. I'm going to roll right into the story of Sandvine here. There we go. First, let me just ask the question, how many of you have ever heard of Sandvine? That's a few, great. How many of you heard of our previous company, Pickstream? Pickstream, some of you there. So I'm gonna actually start there. If you go back to the year 2000, the internet bubble was in full bloom. There was also a bubble that we were participating in. It was called the telecom equipment bubble. There was a new telephone company every week in New York City that was getting started, and we were participating in selling them networking equipment. We were helping telephone companies in the future compete with cable companies by delivering TV services over the telephone's network, something that we take for granted today, but was something that was really getting started. And we were able to build a box about this big by this big that could deliver 144 channels of MPEG video over a DSL network. And it would literally replace a room about this size of equipment of what we were able to do in a very small box. And we were starting to have some real success with it. And along came Cisco Systems. Think of them as the Google of today. They were the most valued company, the Apple of today, most valued public company. People thought of them as the greatest company in the world, and they decided to buy Pickstream. And we thought, wow, we're being bought. We're being bought by the greatest potential company that could potentially buy us, and they're paying something like $550 million for us. This is really good. It's great, in fact. And all of a sudden, the internet bubble burst, and the telecom equipment bubble burst, and things changed very quickly. Cisco, that had been profitable every year of their existence, every quarter of their existence, was going to have their first loss in their existence. And I don't mean a small loss. I mean a $10 billion inventory write-down loss, a $5 billion operating profit loss, just a huge thing. What their chairman of the board and CEO, John Chambers, called the 100-year flood. This is something that we didn't expect. We thought, everything was going to continue going the way it was going. And they decided to look at all their recent acquisitions. We were the 68th acquisition they had ever made, but there was a change in accounting rules that happened right around that time, and they decided they were going to take their most recent acquisitions and throw them in the quarter and shut them down as well. So there was a hiring freeze all across Cisco. We were being told to hire 50 more people. We had just had our first profitable quarter ourselves as a business unit. And we thought we were winning. We were being told we were one of the quickest integrations into Cisco, and Cisco said, hey, we're going to write you down. We're going to shut you down this quarter. And this is why I say don't let your children to grow up to be accountants. It's the devil's work. And so I could hardly believe this. And so all of a sudden, and I'm giving you the abridged version of this, but all of a sudden I have to call a meeting very similar to this, probably right around this size. We're about 250 people. And I remember going into a closet right over there, bawling my eyes out, thinking that I can't believe I'm going to tell this winning team that today is their last day. So sure enough, I went out and did that. And I reflect back on it on the worst day of my life, doing that. And fast forward to later that day, I go for a walk with my kids, and they're like 3 and 5 years old. And my cell phone rings. It's a Motorola StarTAC. I flip it open, I pull up the antenna, I hold it up to my ear. A lot of you guys won't understand this, but And it's Sir Terry Matthews, a Welsh billionaire, created a company called Newbridge Network, sold it, was at the time Alcatel's, Lucent's largest shareholder. He was one of the angel investors in Pickstream originally. And he said, so Dave, what are you guys going to do now? And I said, we're going to go to Disneyland. It was a very popular commercial back then. I said, we're going to go to Disneyland. And he said, Dave, you have to start another company. You guys know how to solve carrier scale problems. You know how to solve real customer issues. You have to start another company. If you wait a year, everyone's going to scatter to the four corners of the earth. You have to start another company. And I said, but Terry, I just fired all the engineers today. And he said this, and I quote, this is him saying it, not me, don't you have their fucking phone numbers? So, yeah, if we could get away with bullshit, maybe we get away. I didn't say it, he said it. And he said, look, Dave, if you start another company, I'm ready to write a check right now for $10 million if you get the guys together and start a company. And they're, okay, I'll give them a call. And so later that night, I did a conference call. One of our co-founders had already found himself in Hawaii by this point. It was, I said, you wouldn't believe the crazy phone call I just got from Terry Matthews. And I just basically told them the exact story I just told you. This gentleman, Brad Sim, right here, down here, and I'm picturing him on a mountain bike on the rim of a volcano in Hawaii, said, you know what, I'm here in Hawaii and I could spend the rest of my life in Hawaii, you know, because of the Cisco acquisition, or I could build another company with you guys. That sounds like a lot more fun. Let's do that. And so 12 hours later, we had raised $20 million in seed funding. I think to this day it's one of the largest seed rounds in Canadian history. People say all the time, how do you start a company with $20 million in the bank? I say it's really easy. First, you start a company and make investors hundreds of millions of dollars, and then you go back and ask them if you could borrow $20 million. It'll work every single time. So not really that scalable of a story, but so here we were, 12 hours later, we're announcing this company, Sandvine. We're going to build this company, Sandvine, and we say, hey, we got to pull the team together, and we asked of those 250, 20 or 30 of them to get started with us, and we made job offers to a bunch of them 6 months out that they could eventually come back and join us, because we had no idea what we were going to do. We just simply had no idea. We couldn't, because all those agreements you've signed with Toyota, confidentiality agreements, invention agreements, and stuff like that. Toyota owns all your ideas right now. If you don't know that, you should talk to your lawyer. It's probably true. So we had those exact same agreements with Cisco Systems. And so we're saying, hey, we started this company, but what are we actually going to do? We embarked on a pretty intensive business planning process that we rolled out to the team, and over 14 weeks we decided what we were going to do. But the one thing we thought was, well, we've got to talk about something, and we're a bunch of engineers, so why don't we engineer our culture? Why don't we decide specifically what we want our culture to be? And we came up with this concept called the Sandvine Way. And I'm not going to bore you with it, because I'm sure there's a Toyota way, or there's a one Toyota, and I'm sure it exists, and I'm not here to teach you the Sandvine way. You should really learn and live the Toyota way. And I'm sure something like 3 out of 4 is better than 2 out of 2. Ain't going to cut it at Toyota. It's like 99.87 out of 100. Why aren't we at 97.88? I'm sure. But the one other thing that the idea that we came up with was, let's really try to develop our leaders. And how many of you have ever, let me ask this question another way. So part of this process, I got to spend some time at Wharton at the University of Pennsylvania, and we had a Harvard professor come in and teach this class, and he had just wrote a book called The New Rules at Work. And one of the things that he was able to prove very conclusively from his research was what motivates people to stick around in an organization. And if you had to guess, if I'm trying to recruit somebody, if I'm trying to recruit you, what's the one thing you could say about your current work environment or that tells me that I could absolutely recruit you? So if you hear something from somebody, you know, hey, I could bring them to Toyota. If you, or said another way, what's the thing that gives people the most job satisfaction? I'm going to say, can you just call out anything? Interest, that they're really interested in their job. That's not it, no. That they're accomplishing something sounds really important. It's not it. It's going to be really obvious when I tell you. Vacation. That they get a lot of vacation. No, not even in the top 5. Trust. Salary. No, no, no. It's all no, but you're going to know it as soon as I tell you. If they say, I don't like my boss, I don't trust my boss, I'm not learning anything from my boss, if I don't respect my boss, my manager, if they could say that, you could absolutely recruit them. How many of you have ever had a really, really bad manager? How many of you have one right now? No one wants to put it. Well, when you have a bad manager, ice cream doesn't taste as good. It really affects the quality of your life. It was what made me leave Hewlett-Packard, was that bad manager that I had. And so all of you that are people manager or emerging leaders here, you impact the quality of life of the folks that you're managing, that you're leading. And you're the biggest influence on whether they're going to stay at Toyota or they're not. And so this is where I said from the very beginning that setting an example is the only thing. And I think I've learned so much from when I've had a great manager, and I thought I got to do more what he or she's doing. And I've learned so much from bad managers that you say, geez, they really made me feel unvalued right now. I'm going to make sure I never do that. And so even if you do have a bad manager right now, and I'm sure Toyota, which is a greatly managed company, I'm sure there's some bad managers, you can still learn from them about what not to do. And so it was really with this in mind that we said we have to hold our leaders, our people managers, to a higher standard. In technology and all business, it's really teams against other teams. And if you can really build the best team, it doesn't really matter what the roadmap for the technology is. Over time, the best team is always the thing that's going to win. And so it led us on this idea of, I want to say the converse of it. Is what's the opposite? What's the opposite of what someone could tell you that says it's going to be really hard not to recruit that person, that person is really, really happy with what's going on? So what's the greatest thing that creates loyalty in an organization? Just yell them out. Why are people happy in an organization? Challenges? Challenge? Does it challenge? No, that's not it. He got it. He got it. It's the people they work with. People are way, way more loyal to the people they work with than they are to the mission of the company, to the objectives of the company. That if they could say, I am friends, I work with my friends, that's the single biggest quality that creates loyalty in an organization. Because think of every job you've ever had anywhere else. What do you miss? Do you miss the task? Do you miss the goals? Or do you miss the people? You think of the people every single time. And so when we came up with this idea of the leader's 10 commandments here, the very first premise of it was to have fun. Make sure that people are creating friendships inside the organization. That as a manager, as a leader, the single biggest thing that you could do to increase the loyalty of your best performers is if they feel they're working with friends, they have each other's back and stuff like that. And so that was the sort of notion of where we came up with this. And this is something that we get together as a management team once a year to talk about, and then every 6 months with all the new managers in the organization. And it's a several-hour presentation, and I rely on Hollywood and other things in culture and media to try to get these messages across. And again, I'm not going to go through each one of these things, but I thought that I would share some of them with you and how we got them across. And I love the fact that Fred, early in his presentation, said, why are we doing this? The concept of always explain why something needs to be done. And then one of the things I really noticed about the culture here at Toyota, and just the few moments that I was here, and even right while I was being introduced to Fred, this concept of safety and quality and building cars really came across. In fact, as I was being introduced to Fred sort of said, yeah, I don't have time to be introduced right now. There's a tripping hazard here that I'm going to fix on the floor right at that moment in time. And to hear him say it right at the very beginning of the presentation. And so I suspect that one of the big whys you have here is let's make sure that we're being safe and we're taking care of ourselves, and by extension taking care of our teammates, and by extension taking care of our teammates' families and our own families here. And I think that's a pretty profound why to have in an organization. And so if you then say, how does this translate into being a leader or how to manage someone? The idea that if you explain a situation first, ask them for insight second. I think that if you defer as long as possible the idea that I'm going to instruct you third, I think you're going to be pretty impressed with some of the innovation that they're going to come up with on how they're going to solve that problem. And so if you always start with why something needs to be done as opposed to how or what needs to be done, I think people will see you as a great leader. I'm going to now skip over to never complain down in an organization. As a leader, as a manager, if you are complaining about something about Toyota or complaining about something about the work environment, that sends a very specific message to the person in your organization that you're complaining down to, that not even you could make a difference. You're disempowering yourself, and you're making them think that what impact could they possibly have if you, as their leader, are complaining to them. And so I think it's one of the most incredible things that could ruin organizations. And I could tell you that it makes it very easy to recruit from other organizations where their leaders are complaining down in the organization. And so I'm gonna pause here for a second, and I'm gonna show you a clip here of, this was one of our leaders' 10 commandments, and we saw this thing in a movie, and we're saying, hey, that's one of our leaders' 10 commandments. And I was able to hire Steven Spielberg to make the point much better than I could, and I'm really hopeful that this is going to work here. So in this clip, you are Tom Hanks.
Sir, I have an opinion on this matter.
Well, by all means, share it with the squad.
Well, from my way of thinking, sir, this entire mission is a serious misallocation of valuable military resources.
Go on.
Well, it seems to me, sir, that God gave me a special gift, made me a fine instrument of warfare.
Driven, pay attention now. This is the way to gripe. Continue, Jackson.
Well, what I mean by that, sir, is you used to put me and this here sniper rifle anywhere up to and including 1 mile of Adolf Hitler with a clear line of sight, sir. Pack your bags, fellas. War's over. Amen.
Oh, that's brilliant, Bumpkin. Hey, so, Captain, what about you? I mean, you don't gripe at all?
I don't gripe to you, Ryben. I'm a captain. There's a chain of command. Gripes go up, not down. Always up. You gripe to me, I gripe to my superior officer, so on, so on, so on. I don't gripe to you. I don't gripe in front of you. You should know that as a ranger.
I'm sorry, sir, but let's say you weren't a captain, or maybe I was a major. What'd you say then?
Well, in that case, I say this is an excellent mission, sir, with an extremely valuable objective, sir. Worthy of my best efforts, sir. Moreover, I feel heartfelt sorrow for the mother of Private James Ryan, and I'm willing to lay down my life and the lives of my men, especially you, Ryben, to ease her suffering.
He's good.
I love him.
How good was that? How good is that to explain not complaining down in an organization? And so, well, you know what? That's so well said. I'm going to move on from it. The next one I want to talk about here is coach, don't fix. When a team member comes to you with a problem, I think being a good leader, being a manager, it requires your undivided attention. You know, don't grab your phone, turn off your monitor. You really, really need to focus on them whenever they're bringing you an issue. And I think that the more you could just ask them questions about it, so often you feel so tempted to say, I already know the solution to this. I just want to tell them. I want to show them how smart I am, and I'm going to show them the solution to this problem that they brought me. Something I learned years ago. Oh, I'm surprised they don't even know it yet. Let me just tell them the answer. I'm going to say resist that temptation. Resist it. And if you just ask them questions and ask them, you know, the other data points that they might need to come up with the answer, I think they'll often surprise you with a better answer than what you were about to tell them, and allows them to exercise their judgment, and they'll really see you as someone helping them develop at that moment in time. And this one here is a little bit more tongue-in-cheek, but I think it illustrates the point in a way that you might remember it.
So, Vula, how is business?
Oh, woe to me. Business is bad.
What's the matter? What's happened? You need money?
No. What she means is that with the two businesses, she suffers.
She suffers?
She suffers. She has to be at the travel agency alone all day because everybody else needs to be working at the big dry cleaning store.
That's right. I make Taki go to the dry cleaner store, and now I have no time with him.
So, send Angelo or Nicky to the travel agency. You'll be with Taki at the dry cleaner.
That would be good.
That would be no good.
No good?
No good. Because neither Angelo or Nicky know how to use the computer.
And that's why that no work.
Computer. I have your answer. Tula will go to the travel agency, and you send Nicky here to work for us.
Oh, I can't believe that. Wonderful.
Oh, what wonderful.
See, a man.
Yes. You're so sick.
Imagine that. Your team member says, "You're so smart. I love you." Well, actually, might get you in trouble. And so you know, that's really it. I wanted to say that if you, I'm just looking for the clicker here. We spent a whole bunch of time at Sandvine with this Leader's 10 Commandments, and it was mostly, you know, engineers from the University of Waterloo that were in our R&D program, and a lot of them said, this stuff, they don't teach you this in university. They don't teach you how to be a leader. They don't teach you how to be a manager. And I can't tell you the number of them that have said that I'm so grateful for this idea that I'm being professionally developed here to be a good leader and manager. Who doesn't want to be a good manager? You affect how ice cream tastes for your team. You really do. And I can't tell you how many of them have come back to us over time, even as they've went to other companies, have come back to us and said, hey, Dave, can we have that Leader's 10 Commandments? It's something that I'd like to roll out at my new company, and it's something that we've just made freely available. And certainly, if you're interested in them or the talking notes that go with all 10 of them, connect to me on LinkedIn or connect through the process here. I'd be very happy to share it with you. But the best thing you could do for your team is to become a great leader and a great manager. And I will say that it's worked at Sandvine. That ever since 2007, all but 1 year, we've been named one of the top 50 places to work in Canada. And the one question that we do incredibly well on is I work with my friends. That people really feel that exists, and I think it's really led to the idea that people have said that they've enjoyed their adventure while there at Sandvine. That's it. Thank you.